What did soldiers eat during different eras in history? In which conflict was the food the most delicious? From bloody soup to fermented horse milk. The soldiers' ration throughout history contained several unappetizing options. There were such disgusting dishes that even claimed the lives of soldiers. And some armies would be glad to get at least some food. George Washington's army was forced to go without rations for several days, and Confederate soldiers stopped during the march to dig up vegetables from the beds. For centuries, soldiers have survived on Kartak, tasteless dry crackers, which sometimes contained only flour and water. By the 20th century, soldiers were complaining about porridge-like canned food, as well as the fact that cigarettes and chewing gum were in their rations. Countries that had difficulty feeding their troops could lose everything, like, for example, Napoleon's humiliating campaign in Russia. Today I will tell you about what the military ration has been throughout history. If you want to support the channel, you can watch me via VPN. Also, don't forget to subscribe and rate the video after watching. And this is a Black History. Let's go. In ancient Greece, the Spartans created a culture dedicated to battles. Boys at the age of 7 were given military barracks for training. As the Roman historian Plutarch explained, their training was designed to ensure that they listened well to commands, endured difficulties and won. In a society designed for fighting, the Spartans could not hope for lavish dinners. In fact, the Spartans ate broth on blood, consisting of boiled pork legs and vinegar. Spartan chowder, also known as black blood chowder. According to legend, this soup was so disgusting that the Spartans were ready to fall in battle, just not to eat it again. By the way, the recipe for black soup has not been preserved. However, soups using blood are currently used in different countries of the world. Rome created an army that dominated the ancient world. An army that conquered Europe, Africa and the Middle East, and which enjoyed high-quality provisions. The Roman legions consumed fresh meat and luxury foods such as bacon, cheese and wine. The Roman legions ate barley and wheat as staples. The army also consumed half a kilo of meat per soldier per day. To meet the high demand, the Roman armies traveled with their own cattle, while consuming 120 sheep a day. Such a high-calorie diet helped the army to cross continents to expand its empire. In 1095, Pope Urban II called Christians to the First Crusade. More than 100,000 Europeans responded to this call and marched to Jerusalem to recapture and capture the city. In the era of the absence of permanent armies, soldiers were forced to recruit their own provisions. The Crusaders ate dried meat and porridge, as well as fruit and cheese, if they could afford it. Some soldiers even had to sell their property or mortgage land to provide themselves with food. It's funny that the Crusaders did not consider it necessary to stop during the battle to have a snack. However, during the siege of Oko in 1189–1191 years of our era, the Crusaders twice stopped the battle for a lunch break, which in turn helps explain why it took 2 years to capture the city. Genghis Khan and his army conquered the largest land empire in history. Eating ordinary cottage cheese, the Mongol Wars managed to conquer a territory equal in area to the entire African continent. The nomadic Mongols were not farmers. They mostly survived on their livestock. The Mongols divided their diet into white and red food. Fermented horse milk belonged to white food or dairy, and red, meat. Mongol Wars sometimes put a bag of meat, onions, rice under the saddle when riding. Under the influence of friction during the ride, the meat was cooked and turned into what we know today as bastima. According to Mark Paul, there was a legend that warriors made small punctures in the neck of horses and drank their blood during long trips. In 1683, the Ottomans besieged Vienna and almost captured this city. Led by foot soldiers called janissaries, the Ottomans received plentiful military rations. The Ottoman soldiers consumed freshly baked bread, a daily diet of mutton and lamb, as well as luxury items such as honey and coffee. When there was no fresh bread, the soldiers ate cookies, which were first prepared in Istanbul, and then delivered to the battlefields. In the 17th century, an observer recorded that 105 ovens in the capital were preparing cookies for soldiers. Cookies were so desirable for the Ottoman army that unscrupulous bakers sometimes replaced flour with dirt, resulting in the death of many soldiers. During the American Revolution, George Washington's army had a great advantage. They were fighting on their own land. The British, on the contrary, had to transport soldiers, ammunition and provisions abroad. But the Continental Army still faced serious supply problems. In 1775, Congress authorized the issuance of half a kilo of beef and flour per day. The soldiers also had to receive peas or beans, milk, rice, beer or cider and molasses. By the way, I love molasses, but for some reason it's not in my city. But without tax powers, Congress could not afford these rations. As a result, soldiers were often left without food for several days. Congress suggested that General Washington simply confiscate the food. But he was not a fool and naturally refused. Washington feared that the seizure of provisions would quickly turn the colonists against their army. In 1812, Napoleon's penetration into Russia suffered a grand failure when thousands of soldiers died of starvation. At the beginning of the campaign, Napoleon's army numbered 600,000 soldiers. Only 25,000 of them survived. This incident confirmed the saying of Napoleon himself, "The army marches on its belly." At that time, the ration of French soldiers included 600 grams of bread, 250 grams of meat and a liter of wine. The French troops were so devoted to bread that they took baguettes with them. The long, narrow uniform allowed the soldiers to carry bread right in their pants. During the Civil War, the Union Army ate meat, flour, and even rotten vegetables. John Billings, a Union veteran, said the troops were given salted pork, fresh beef, salted beef, rarely ham or bacon, hard bread, soft bread, potatoes, sometimes onions, flour, beans, peas, rice, dried apples, dried peaches, dried vegetables, coffee, tea, sugar, molasses, vinegar, candles, soap, pepper and salt. And in fact, molasses has been the standard U.S. military ration since the American Revolution. The Confederates struggled to feed their army. The shortage of food was so acute that General Robert E. Lee warned that desertion to the enemy was becoming more frequent. Lee added, "If there are no changes, I'm afraid the army will not be able to be saved." Confederate soldiers were forced to forage for food during long marches from point to point. One soldier wrote in 1864, "People dug up and collected vegetables, cooking wormwood, potato skins, creepers, sorrel, sheep's hooves, thistles and 100 kinds of weeds. I always thought it was garbage, but the guys called it a regular lunch." American troops during the Spanish-American War were the first to receive canned food in their military rations. But the canning technology was still so bad that many soldiers received food poisoning after eating provisions and even died. Veteran Carl Sentberg said the following about canned beef: "Canned red horse was given to a specific person who opened them. He brought it to his nose, inhaled the smell, wrinkled his face and wove it. The next man did the same, and the next one, until all 8 people from the dining room sniffed, grimaced and spat. Then people threw the beef overboard, complaining that it smelled like an embalmed corpse." It is shocking that botulism and other foodborne diseases contained in canned food may have claimed more lives than the fighting itself. According to statistics, while only 280 people died in the battles, more than 2,000 died from other causes. American soldiers ate a kind of reserve ration during the First World War. Designed for a long overseas voyage, these rations did not have a bright taste. The soldiers ate canned meat and vegetables, breadcrumbs, which the soldiers called dog biscuits, tobacco and sweets. However, rations were not limited to cold products. On the front line, soldiers sometimes ate hot food cooked in milk cans, homemade soups that were no better than those made from weeds. By the beginning of World War II, the American Army had developed new rations. These rations were designed to be lightweight and easy to carry and were available in 3 forms: C-ration, D-ration and K-ration. The C-ration and K-ration rations contained canned beef and potatoes, cookies and risks, and instant coffee. Usually they also included cigarettes and chewing gum, as well as toilet paper. One ration should have been enough for 3 meals, and it provided 3,600 calories. D's ration was a simple chocolate bar. During Vietnam, the U.S. military conducted rations of EMSIAI or MIL combat individual, that is, individual combat nutrition. Everyone's unloved rations included canned meat, which the soldiers warmed up with a C4 substance. Soldiers also received packages of crackers, cookies, applesauce and cake. During the patrol, soldiers sometimes put packages of cookies in socks or tied them to backpacks. The ration also included malaria tablets, salt tablets and Lomotil tablets, which the soldiers took 4 times a day to combat diarrhea. In the 1980s, the American Army led a new diet called MARI, meals or ready-to-eat meals. Instead of cans, the soldiers began to receive sealed bags of food. MAR also took into account complaints about previous diets, as they offered 24 different dishes, including kosher, halal and vegetarian options. In the 2018 year, the Army introduced the MARI pizza, which can stay fresh for 3 years. Soldiers can order MAR in number 23, which contains pizza, breadsticks, blueberry cobbler, chocolate protein drink and cookies. I've been wanting to host some interesting feature on the channel for a long time, so let's try and see what happens. Today I suggest you to play a short quiz on the material that I voiced earlier. It may look a little clumsy, but we're just trying, right? So, the first question: what did the Spartans cook their black soup on? On milk, on water, on blood, or on beer? I think it's better to tell you the answer than to ask you to write it, so for now we'll do this, and then we'll see. The correct answer is on the blood. Question number 2. The Mongols divided their food into 2 categories. What were these categories? White and black, yellow and blue. White and red or black and yellow. The correct answer is white and red, milk and meat. Next question. What did Napoleon's saying sound like? The army is a train when there is time. The army marches on its belly. Take care of the baguette from a young age. Friendship is friendship, and service is service. And the correct answer. The army marches on its belly. Last question. How is the abbreviation of the MSIAI soldering translated? Individual combat nutrition. Fast food lunch. Try to take a chance. The holiday is coming to us. The correct answer is CHOC Combat Individual or Individual Combat Nutrition. That's all for today with questions, and if you liked or disliked such an interactive, then write about it in the comments. That's how the diet changed depending on the time. Thanks to those who supported the release of this video by the link in the description. And according to the tradition of our channel, let's write in the comments now I know about the diet of soldiers. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to subscribe and rate this video with a like. And it was Oleg Cherny. Bye to everyone.